The content of this program represents the opinions, research, and observation of the host and his assessment of scientific evidence available at this time. None of the statements, claims, techniques, dietary guidelines, or supplements mentioned in this program have been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The information contained herein is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for standard care provided by medical practitioners. Any application of the advice presented here is at the listener's own discretion or risk. The information should not be used for self-diagnosis or application. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before beginning any new nutritional, exercise, or lifestyle improvement program. The host and this station disclaim any responsibility for any adverse effects arising from the use or application of information contained in this program. Now broadcasting from his nutritional command center deep in the heart of Victoria, Texas, charging through the swamp of misconceptions, deception, and myths, bringing to you the newest cutting-edge scientific-based nutrition information so you can enjoy whole spectrum health. Here's the paladin of nutrition and whole foods expert, Labron Allen.
From the front lines of the battle against your health freedoms, I'm your host, Labron Allen, and this is Health Alert. So first, we're going to go over the health news this morning, and then I'm going to introduce one of my exceptional patients to hear her overall health story. And that's what's in store for you in a little bit. But first, the health news. First of all, Dr. Oz. Now, many people love Dr. Oz. In fact, I was just watching a television program this morning, and they were mentioning how wonderful of a guy he was. But recently on his program, he talked about, actually not only on the program, but also in Time magazine, he talked about how there really is no difference between organic food and commercial food. Now, first of all, I'm sure that he has no backers that are regular commercial food manufacturers. I'm sure that was not part of his motivation in that article, in that interview. But there's basically a response from the Cornucopia Institute rebuffing the different comments that Dr. Oz has made, and I'd like to go over that with you for just a few moments. Now, again, the full story is available to Time subscribers. You can actually get that by going to www.time.com/magazine.article. And then there's a whole bunch of numbers, so it's just easier if you search for the article on the Time magazine website. But here are some excerpts from that article. Dr. Oz, he had this to say. Nutritionally speaking, there is little difference between the farmer's market bounty and the humble brick from the freezer case. Well, already that sounds better, doesn't it? Or at least just as good. I mean, certainly, bounty compared to a frozen brick is just as appetizing. But nonetheless, this is what the Cornucopia Institute response was. Dr. Oz compares conventional organic foods throughout the article by focusing exclusively on the difference between a handful of nutrients. And that, by the way, is an excellent point. For example, if the produce is actually grown, if the organic produce is actually grown in soil that has been organically farmed for a period of time, there's going to be a significant difference in the different varieties of nutrients found in that soil, including certain trace minerals, which pretty much do not appear in commercial farmland at all. So if you focus on the amounts of certain nutrients within organic and commercially produced produce, it's basically going to be the same thing, especially if you ignore all the other nutrients that are in organic produce as compared to the commercial produce. Secondly, remember that in almost all of the different studies that have recently come out about organic foods basically being the same as commercial foods, every one of them has admitted that the largest difference between the two is that organic foods have much less synthetic chemicals. Now, perhaps you don't find that important, but I personally do, especially with many of the different studies that we've talked about on this program, that these pesticides and genetically modified organisms are being found to create genetic anomalies within animals, and it's not so hard to assume that it would also create genetic anomalies within humans as well. Well, what else did the wonderful Dr. Oz have to, doesn't that make you think of the Wizard of Oz? There's just something about that name. But nonetheless, let's continue. Dispelling these myths, this is Dr. Oz again, that boutique I love the words he's using. Do you notice how the words he's using, it makes you sound like a snob if you decide to eat organic foods? You're not the common man anymore. You're some kind of food elitist, apparently having a mental issue and requiring psychiatric medication because you wish to be healthy. Anyway, the boutique foods are good, supermarket foods are suspect, and you have to spend a lot to eat well. Well, number one, that's really not true. There's not a huge difference between organic foods and no longer eating all the junk foods that most people eat. Have you ever noticed the actual junk foods, pies, cookies, cakes, ice creams, are actually quite expensive? So that right there is definitely a myth. Anyway, continue on. He has this to say. Again, he says that boutique foods are good, supermarket foods are suspect, and you have to spend a lot to eat well is critical to improving our nation's health. Organic food is great. It's just not very democratic. Oh, I see. So now you are against the United States of America if you wish to eat organic food. That's interesting. Very interesting. Okay. He had this to say, Dr. Oz, the rise of foodie culture over the past decade has venerated all things small batch, local farm, and organic, all with premium price tags. So again, you should not support your local farmers, but support the commercial, gigantic food manufacturers like General Mills, of course. Why would you be interested in supporting your local farmers? Obviously, that's undemocratic. But let's be clear, you don't need to eat like the 1% to eat healthily. So indeed, if you eat organic, you are the elitist 1%. That's very interesting. He goes on to say, Dr. Oz, after several years of research and experience, so understand he's now positioned himself as the expert. After several years of research and experience, I have come to an encouraging conclusion. Well, I'd like to know who it's encouraging for, likely the commercial food manufacturers, but let's go on to see what he has to say. The American food supply is abundant, nutritionally sound, affordable, and with a few simple considerations, comparable to the most elite organic diets. Well, I don't know exactly where he's been, but I think he needs to do a few more years of research, according to the standard American diet, also known as the SAD diet. So his recommendations are to save the cash, because the 99% diet can be good for you. That's true. It can be very good for the sick care industry, otherwise known as the healthcare industry. It can be quite good for them. So if you wish to pad the pockets of the commercial food manufacturers, the sick care industry, then go right ahead and eat the 99% diet of the standard American diet. Okay, continuing on. Headline: Emotions play a central role in moral judgment, scientists have found. Now, this is one of the beautiful things about natural health care is that indeed it considers all aspects of health, not just physiology or the physical biochemical aspects, which is pretty much what the medical community focuses on, including with psychiatric conditions. If you think about it, what do they say is the reason for psychiatric conditions? Well, there's a chemical imbalance in the brain, which is completely unfounded and unproven because there is no laboratory test that can actually prove that. The chemical imbalance is completely subjective, according to whatever psychiatrist or other medical doctor is assessing you. But with natural health care, it's actually quite easy to ascertain that emotions not only play a role in your health, but very often they are a trigger of both good health and detrimental health. So let's see what this study has to say. The study was funded by the National Science Foundation and the Swiss National Science Foundation and published in the Journal of Neurophysiology. It found that the brain quickly evaluates whether a harmful act was intentional or not, responding immediately with strong emotions in the case of deliberate harm. The researchers believe that this response forms the universal foundation of morality in all cultures. The lead author, whose name is Jean Dessetti, had this to say. It is part of humans' evolutionary heritage. The long history of mammalian evolution has shaped our brains to be sensitive to signs of suffering of others, and this constitutes a natural foundation for morality and sensitivity to justice. Well, it happens to be my belief that it's not evolution that did that at all, but perhaps God's design made you know if what you did was good or bad. How about that idea? Continuing, Next generation of airport scanners will scan every single molecule in your body. I see. So the naked body scanners are not enough. Now they need to know what's the components of every one of our molecules. Well, let's find out what this is. Apparently, the new airport scanners used by the TSA are now going to be able to analyze the molecules in our body, including the medications you take, the supplements you take, and the food that you've eaten that morning. That's pretty incredible. It says the scanner, which Homeland Security officials believe could be ready for use within the next few years, will be employed in airports. But it's also going to be quite small and light enough to be very portable. Well, that makes me feel safer already. Let's just port it to wherever we need to go. Have highway checkpoints before you walk into the mall, before you go into your home, because, you know, there might be brown men with turbans on their heads hiding underneath your kitchen table. Continuing, it's reportedly that it's 10 million times faster than the current body scanners and 1 million times more sensitive than scanners that are employed in the TSA and U.S. Border Patrol and custom agents at border crossings and ports of entry. According to a report in Gizmodo.com, the government subcontracted with the CIA's Venture Capital Technology Acquisition Branch to work on development of device with Genia Photonotronics. Wow, that's a mouthful. A company that has acquired 30 patents related to the molecular level scanners. According to the company, the scanner is able to penetrate clothing and many other organic materials and offers officers spectroscopic information, especially for materials that impact safety, such as explosives and pharmacological substances. Very interesting. So, you know, many times in this program, we have talked about wheat and the detrimental ill effects of wheat, mainly through gliadin and also gluten. Now, most of the focus is on gluten, but as we have again talked about on this program, that's pretty much a misnomer because many people might be somewhat sensitive to gluten, but more so they are sensitive to gliadin, which is an alien artificial protein that is now in most of the wheat supply due to genetic modification. And of course, the medical testing does not test for gliadin. It tests for gluten. So what I would like to do is actually go over 6 different signs that you may have a gliadin or a gluten sensitivity. So here's the 6 most common signs of a gliadin intolerance. First, there can be gastrointestinal discomfort. This actually probably is the number one symptom that most of my patients report when they have eliminated wheat from their diet for a period of time and they choose to eat some at some point. They feel bloated, their gastrointestinal system, their intestines are distended, and that lasts up to several days. Hence the title of the book that is quite good about the detrimental effects of eating wheat on a common basis and specific links to many diseases. The book entitled Wheat Belly. The second most common side effect is headaches, including migraine. So if you already suffer from chronic headaches and migraines, guess what? You get rid of the wheat from your diet. Also, fibromyalgia. So muscle-like aches and pains are quite common with gliadin sensitivity. Now, here's one that most people do not think about, but it happens at least as often as the wheat belly, if not even more so, and that is emotional changes with the consumption of wheat. Usually, it's going to be mood swings and the feeling of irritability. In fact, it can be a direct link to PMS. So keep that in mind if you or anyone you know suffers from that condition. Also, there can be neurological issues such as dizziness, lightheadedness. There can even be peripheral neuropathy, which means tingling, numbness, burning in the fingers, in the toes, hands, and feet. Also, it can affect the strength of your hands. So if you've noticed changes in the strength of your hands, you know, some people complain about not being able to twist the lid off of a jar or bottle. That can actually be a sign of chronic gliadin sensitivity. Another very common form of symptoms from gliadin intolerance is actually fatigue, just complete lethargy. And so if after consuming some type of wheat family, which by the way is wheat, barley, rye, spelt is known as the better wheat, all of those do contain gluten, and many of them contain gliadin as well. So after eating those things, you have any of these 6 symptoms, I would recommend that you never touch the stuff again. Well, here we go. You know, there's so much talk about the mental health of individuals nowadays in the media that lots of people go undiagnosed with mental illness, and that's the reason that there's so much violence and gun crime and so forth and so on. Of course, it's the guns themselves also that create that issue. But going along with that idea, there is an independent school district in Washington State that has found a novel way of dealing with unruly students. Now remember, actually I haven't told you yet, this is actually Mint Valley Elementary. So this is an elementary school. And what they have done is that when they have issues, behavioral issues with students, they are now putting them inside what they call an isolation booth. Now, this is not a gigantic gymnasium with television monitors and Barney and so forth. This is a small 8-foot by 8-foot metal box that is padded with a locking metal door. And they are inside of the booth by themselves, isolated. Now, I'm sure that that would not create any type of mental ill effects for this child. Instead of actually disciplining the child, they wish to use Stasi-like prison techniques. This is very interesting. So that's where we are in current stages of society. And that is also the health news for this morning. So at the beginning of the program, I mentioned that we were going to have an interview with an exceptional patient. Her name is Karen McClung, and she has an incredible health story that she's going to share with us. So Karen, if you would, tell people about yourself.
Hi, Labron. Thank you.
Hello, Karen. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Glad to be here, and I'm glad to share my story, mainly because I think everybody needs to take charge of their own health care. We are looking at some really interesting times with the health care that's coming down in our country, and I think we all need to educate ourselves as to how to be really healthy.
You know what? I think the first step we need to do is just change the name, because it's not
I struggled.
healthcare.
Exactly. Yeah, and I didn't really know what to call it without being too.
even the medical establishment themselves, they don't really call it health care. They call it health management.
Exactly.
Which, why do I want to manage sickness? That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Let's just get rid of it.
Exactly. Well, for the longest time, I was just like everybody else, and I bought into the conventional thinking that the doctors had all the answers. They were going to cure me. They were going to either give me a pill or cut it out or do whatever. And it started probably maybe 20, 25 years ago when I was first diagnosed with cancer. I had colon cancer. And they misdiagnosed me, as a matter of fact, and gave me tranquilizers. They told me I had too many children, and that was my problem.
I see. It was all in your mind.
It was all in my mind.
Well, of course it was.
Yes, but I did go along with with some of what they told me to do. I wanted it out, but
so you had too many children. Why? Your own children? Or?
Yes,
oh, okay.
My children. Yes, that was making me. That's what was giving me all my physical ailments.
Too many children. Got it.
Yes.
Now, by the way, what is your background?
Actually, I'm a teacher.
A teacher?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What kind of teacher?
I taught first grade.
Elementary school?
Yes. Yeah. I like the little ones. So,
kind of as an aside, could you imagine as an elementary school teacher putting an unruly child in an isolation booth for any period of time?
Isn't that frightening?
It's incredible.
That is frightening. A padded cell.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Anyway, please continue.
Well, I did what they wanted me to do, and I was glad to do it. They took out my colon, and little did I know what that meant for me for the next 20 years. But I did it, and I thought I was doing the right thing. When they suggested that I do chemotherapy, we did a little bit of research, talked to a lot of different doctors, and we had 50% of the doctors say don't do it, it won't buy you any more time. We had another 50% saying you have to do it. So we chose not to do chemotherapy. Then in '01, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which was a very rude awakening. And once again, my attitude was just cut it out. That was all I cared about. And I'll never forget being down at MD Anderson when they informed me that there was no way they could cut it out. The tumor that you could feel was about 2 inches by 2 inches. But when you looked at the ultrasound film, probably 75 to 80% of that film was black. The tumor had just mushroomed.
Wow.
And there was no way they could cut that out. So they said I had to do chemo, then radiation, then surgery, then more chemo, more radiation. And thank God I had enough presence of mind to be aware, or enough knowledge to be aware that this was going to kill me, that I would not survive that kind of an onslaught on my body. So I walked out of MD Anderson, told my husband I wasn't going back there. I was sick. I knew I was sick. I knew I was really sick, but I didn't look like that yet, and I wasn't going to do that to myself.
Now, let me stop you for just a minute. Something that's actually interesting in this story is that within MD Anderson, you could have had the absolute top-notch best care in the world. Is that not correct?
Well, yes. And my husband at the time was a vice president at MD Anderson. So it was kind of I know he was really panicky that I was doing that for a lot of reasons. I mean,
that's actually an extraordinary part of the story. I mean, because you would have had the best care, obviously.
Well, it didn't translate into the best care in my mind. I was going to die, and that's no kind of care. So in my mind, I did not have a choice. I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. I didn't know what was ahead. I just knew I wasn't going back to that place and submit myself to that kind of a regimen. And it was really amazing. God was truly good to me. He just kind of led me to one person and then another all along the way. The first person that I found a clinic, but it was out of town. It was in Dallas, and my husband didn't want me to leave home. He didn't think that was good for me or for the family. So then we found a nutritionist who was a nurse, and she kind of got me started changing my diet, which is not the diet I'm on today, but it was a start. And
so how did she work with you? Go ahead.
The only thing she did was to counsel me, and basically that was it. Counsel me and to get me started on some supplements.
Okay, so she just did nutritional consulting, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So she'd look over your diet and look at what might be missing, what deficiencies there were, suggest changes in diet.
Not even that detailed, no? And that
wow.
Carefully.
So this was just a really beginning for you.
Yes.
Wow.
Even she took me off all animal protein,
okay. All right.
Which was very difficult for me to do.
Right. But I understand the idea, the hormones and so forth behind it.
I understood the idea,
yes.
what the thinking was at the time, but it was still very hard for me to do it. I had always been a meat eater.
Right.
So anyway, I did that for about 6 months, I guess, 5 or 6 months, and then I realized that I was just barely treading water. I was making no progress. And again, God sent me to a naturopath in Houston who was very good, and she did a lot of good for me for several years. And then we had to move. We had to leave town. We had to move. Sold up. We had 2 houses, had to sell one. So we moved to the coast.
So let me get this timeline now, because, in just a couple of minutes, we're covering a whole lot of ground. So you were actually working with this naturopath for several years.
Yes.
So this is with the cancer, the breast cancer, now for several years after it's been diagnosed.
Correct.
Okay, that's kind of amazing. See, most people think that it's like instantaneous death if they don't have it removed and burned and cut and so forth.
Right. And, I recognized all along that this was going to be a long process, that this was not something, there was no quick fix. I didn't get to this point in 6 months, even 2 years. I had been very sickly as a child, and I kind of had health problems throughout all my growing up years, and even my early 20s, I had health problems and had my gallbladder out at 26. I mean, just a lot of little things. So there was a nagging little seed that told me you're not really healthy. And I knew that it was going to be, I was in this for the long haul. So when I was doing this for several years and wasn't making progress, or not making progress, when I was still working on this, because I could see the progress that I made at that point.
So going back to the naturopath in Houston, how did she work with you? So what I'm kind of looking for is that you're really eased into the natural health aspect. So the first nurse you worked with just kind of worked with diet a little bit.
Right.
And now you went to a naturopath. And
Right.
so what did this step entail?
This step entailed, mainly it was based around hair testing.
Okay.
And
Also known as tissue mineral analysis.
correct.
Okay.
And when we would get the results back, then that would indicate what supplements, the imbalances that existed in my body would then indicate the supplements that I was to be on.
Okay, so there should be certain ratios of these minerals according to the tissue analysis, and if the ratios are not there, then that indicates some type of process going on, detrimental process.
Right. It indicates a malfunctioning system.
Okay.
And you can look at the different ratios and tell which system is functioning at what level, good or bad.
So you're here to tell me that those ratios change just by taking supplements?
Well, mine changed, but they never got to where they really needed to be.
But yet they still changed.
Yes.
By doing the things that were
Yeah,
recommended.
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of remarkable. So
Well,
that
it
means
was-
on a tissue level, your body's changing by taking supplementation.
Exactly. Oh, yes. It
Yeah,
most
that's
definitely
amazing.
was. It most definitely was. But doing this, the interesting thing is, I began to relax my diet, and
So the naturopath wasn't real strict with diet?
we started out real strict. But as time progressed, and I appeared to be doing well, because my hair test did show
Did improve.
improvement.
Okay,
They
good.
never got to the ideal levels of the mineral ratios, but there was great improvement. As I showed improvement, we did relax things, like, oh yeah, you can have. Well, of course, I had been back on meat for a while, but okay, you could have a little a margarita here or there, but maybe one a month you could have, or something like that. And with her attitude, then I kind of relaxed a little too.
Okay,
Excuse me.
so basically when she relaxed,
I did.
is it fair to say that you may have relaxed even more?
Yes, it is very fair, very fair. And I guess
So you needed support. You needed someone there saying, look, Karen,
Right.
you got some diseases going on here.
Right,
You
right.
need to stay to it.
Right.
Okay.
And I've learned a lot over the last several years, the last few years, really. But when we moved to the coast, I saw her for one last time to get another hair test, to get the results of another hair test, and she said, "Well, how's the tumor doing?" And I said, "Well, it's I can feel changes in it." And she checked it, which she did it was a routine thing for her to check it at each visit. And she took one look at it and she said, "Oh my gosh, this is now considered invasive breast cancer and you have to go cut it out." And what I thought was the tumor coalescing and kind of coming to a head, as in going away, was actually the tumor growing and coming through the skin. And she was quite visibly shaken, and as she's telling me all of this, she's writing down the name of a surgeon, telling me that my only option is to cut it out. And I told her, "Well, I believe what you're saying, but if it's growing in one direction, it's surely growing in other directions, which means I'm back where I started. They won't cut it out. I'm going to have to do chemo, radiation, then they'll cut it out. Then I have to do more chemo, more radiation." And that wasn't an option
You're
then.
not going to do that.
And it's not an option now. I'm going to die either way, if I do, if I don't. So we moved down to the coast.
One with, maybe a fairly good quality of life and the other with no quality of life. So,
Well, if I did nothing, I just opted not to do the surgery, but then did nothing on my own, I knew that I wasn't going to have much of a quality of life.
well, I mean, even if you did the surgery, here's what I was saying. If you did the surgery and the chemo and the radiation, that's just going to destroy your quality of life.
Exactly.
I mean, I've seen so
Exactly.
many people
I
who
knew
just
that.
end up worse.
Yes.
And compared to if you do nothing, you might feel okay,
For a
even
while.
though the
Right.
result of both might end up being the same.
Exactly. So we moved down to the coast, and for 2 years, I'm kind of on my own, and I put myself back on the original diet that she had me on, cutting out all sugars, any kind of simple carbs. took myself off of all animal products.
Now, one thing about the diet, did she explain to you that glucose or sugar is actually one thing that creates cancer cells?
I knew
to grow?
that.
Oh, you
I
knew
knew
that. Okay.
I had known that, and there was never a lot of discussion about diet.
Okay. But so, and I'm just kind of curious, as into the mind of a patient, peering down into there. When you would decide, for example, like the illustration you used, to drink a margarita, let's say, which obviously has sugar in it.
Right.
Did you think that just drinking that one would not affect the cells?
I just
Or
figured,
did you not think about it?
I didn't think about it, and I just made the assumption that I was far enough along in this process that one wasn't going to hurt me,
I see.
and it was the wrong assumption. So.
Yep.
So for 2 years, I was on my own, trying to start over from scratch. I reasoned that I did it once, I could do it again. And I got to the point where I knew I was treading water. I would have all kinds of symptoms occur, piddly little symptoms, but things that told me I'm
not right.
There's a lot of things not right.
Such as, I mean, just
Not sleeping, leg cramps, horrible leg cramps, can't get my breath. I think the term they use is air starved. Pounding heart, flaky skin, you name it. Nothing that you think, oh, that's going to kill me, but just a whole lot of little things that are telling me I'm not making progress.
kind of like blinking lights on a car
Yes.
dashboard.
Yes, exactly.
Check engine, check engine.
Do something. It was yelling at me, do something.
Yeah.
And I had kind of established a nice network of like-minded people in Rockport, and
Now, that right there, by the way, is very important, to have people around you who support you in the things that you're doing.
oh, I know.
It doesn't matter if you're doing everything perfectly yourself. If you have people around you who are negative in what you're doing, if you have any improvement at all, it's going to be incredibly extraordinary.
You have no idea the negativity that I lived with for the first 7 or 8 years of what I did.
Wow.
It was really difficult, and it came from many of my own family. And I understand. I understand that they didn't understand what this was all about,
Right,
and
but-
they just didn't get it.
But the good balance to that is that your husband is extraordinarily supportive.
Oh
So
my
that's-
gosh! Oh my gosh! Yeah,
That's
well,
a blessing.
After he got over his initial
Oh my God,
stage,
Karen.
stage of
What are you
being
doing?
totally scared to death, he has been my biggest supporter. He has done. If I do it, he does it, and that has been a godsend to me. But I think also it's been a godsend to him, because he's doing exactly what I do. He's taking supplements. He is finding out what's going on with his body, and the bottom line is, I do believe that he has averted some real serious illnesses by doing
I have no doubt.
this. I have no doubt some very serious illnesses.
Okay, so please
So-
continue. Don't let me interrupt. you.
Okay. Well, this network of friends that I had, we really supported one another, and we got some people to listen to what we were saying and to embrace
That's always nice when that happens.
that was so unusual. You have no idea how nice it was. But one of them had heard about this naturopath in Victoria, and she says, I think we need to see him. I think we need to see him. And she had taken a lot of natural healing classes. She was studying to get her degree in naturopathy also. So I like to pick her brain because she was quite knowledgeable. And when she came and told me that, I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do now? I need to do something. So I let her go first. And
Let her be the guinea pig.
exactly. So she and her in-laws all went and came to see you. And
Oh, so I was the naturopath. Okay, I got
yes,
it. All right.
you were the one we were going to.
I was thinking that, but didn't want to be sure.
No. And so after talking with them and watching them for several weeks, and we would wait anxiously outside of church. Okay, did you see him yesterday? How'd it go? And all of this. I told my husband.
Did he bring out the crystals yet?
Well, you know what? I had enough experience with naturopaths that I knew it wasn't going to be hokey. It might not be something that the next person on the street would understand,
Right.
but I knew it wasn't going to be hokey. So I was really comfortable, and I was extremely pleased to hear all the positive things that they had to say. But I was even more pleased when I started my series of visits with you.
And so now you've come to the clinic.
Yes,
and
yes.
Tell me what happened.
Well, actually, I'll just cut to the chase. Because I have known since I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2001 that my thyroid has been non-functioning. And after talking with you, I realized that was probably the case for the majority of my life.
But yet you've had blood panels done for it, right?
No, not even at MD Anderson. No.
Really?
No.
That's a little surprising to me. Okay.
No, I did not. But at this point in time, after seeing you, I guess maybe, I don't remember, 3 or 4 months, and I'm still on supplements and I'm still doing a program. It's not that I'm nowhere near, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. But
and the most important question, are you still eating correctly?
Oh my gosh. Yes. But I'm not only eating correctly, I'm enjoying, I feel like I can eat normally.
What? You can eat food that's good?
It tastes good to me. We enjoy it. We eat really well. And I don't feel deprived. Let me put it to you that way. I do not feel at all deprived. But the bottom line is I know that the diet, along with the supplements that I take, is why for the first time in probably 30 or 40 years, I have normal thyroid functioning. I'm sleeping almost 100% of what I think I should be. I don't have dry skin anymore. My breathing is so normal. I forget that I'm not doing this crazy trying to struggle to breathe anymore. I am improving. I am taking some pretty significant steps forward. And that's not to say that, I'm done 6 months in a year, I'm going to be done. This is health care. This is not
sick care.
This is not, disease management.
Yeah.
Although in my case, I'm working to get over disease, but
Right.
it is working to get truly healthy.
Yeah, it's like exercising. You have the benefits while you do it, and if you stop, you lose the benefits.
Right.
Yep.
So this is the way, our ancestors, or some of our ancestors anyway, ate and lived and tried to be healthy. So I am just extremely grateful. I think God is amazing the way He created our bodies to work, and I am grateful that He has been faithful enough to show some of us how to access the knowledge that our body has to offer when we try to heal it.
Yeah, it is amazing design, isn't it? It
Truly is. It truly is.
So, if you don't mind, let me delve into your experience with us just a little bit.
Okay.
So, the main thing that I do is work with diet, physiology, to some extent emotional aspects to it. But my wife, Rhonda, she works specifically with the emotional side of the natural health paradigm. So one of the things during a nutrition response testing that I am looking for, as I've explained before in this program, is there an interference to the body being able to heal whatever this organ, gland, or situation is? And, of course, one of the interferences that there can be are emotional aspects, emotional stress. And one thing that was interesting to me in your case is that certain homeopathics dealing with emotional stress would test on you, and yet it would be oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes the emotions that you felt you had been handling.
Right. And the interesting thing to me, and I guess I've known it because as I have gone down this road, as I've made this journey, I have realized how much healthier emotionally I have gotten, and I still have work to do, but I do see a real connection between being physically healthy and being emotionally healthy. So yes, I am doing better, and I also acknowledge that I have more work to do.
Who doesn't? That's the real.
You're absolutely
the
right.
Open secret.
And none of us are ever free of some kind of an emotional situation or stress or whatever. But I did find it really interesting when in learning. I've learned a lot from you. Learning what particular emotion impacts which particular organ. I thought that was or organ or body system.
Right.
That was new to me, but as you began talking, I went, oh my gosh. I mean, you just nailed it on the head, especially as I look back at my childhood and the different things that I dealt with physically, and then to see the impact of that on me in later life. It was an eye-opener. It was really an eye-opener.
Those things really are. It helps you start understanding where you've been, basically where you've come from, and why what you're experiencing now occurred at all.
Right.
It is fascinating. But I have a secret to tell you, Karen.
Oh, good.
That, it's your body that told me those things as far as the emotional stress. I'm really not that smart. So, but don't tell anybody, okay?
Don't tell. Okay. I do. I just so appreciate. I appreciate the goodness of God, and I appreciate the people that He has put in my life, and that includes you and everybody at your office. I know I was barely treading water, and the minute I stopped, I could feel that I was fast sinking, and I was having even more symptoms than what I let on to my husband, and it was a godsend. Well, thank you. I don't even know how to respond to that. Thank you very much. No, I thank you. My husband says all the time, it's amazing how God puts people in our lives when we need them and when we're ready for them. And you have opened my eyes to so many things, and I am really, really grateful. And I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So thank you. And you're welcome. It's our pleasure to help people. And so there you are, folks. I mean, it's an extraordinary experience. I hope that you have learned from Karen's experience. And again, thank you, Karen, for thank you for letting me share this. You're very welcome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I hope that you have learned from Karen's experience. And of course, if you, and yes, I am talking to you, the one listening to the radio right this moment, if you are ready to find out if you are a nutrition response testing case or not, if you're ready for a health improvement program or not, the best way to do that is by coming to our free health presentations. And our next free health presentation, actually going along quite well with the experience that we've talked about together with Karen, is entitled How to Feel Good Again. And that's going to be held on Tuesday, December the 11th at 7 p.m. Of course, the location is always the same. In fact, the day is always the same. It's always on Tuesday at 7 p.m. And the location is the Natural Health Clinic at 3908 North John Stockbauer, Suite C as in cat. At that seminar, we are actually going to first learn the reasons, the processes, what's going on behind the feelings that you're currently having, the feeling tired, the lack of purpose, of motivation. And then from there, once you understand what's happening, we're going to begin implementing a step-by-step program that you can use to once again feel good again. Or have you ever felt good? That's another question. Using the example of Karen, she was talking about even as a child, she knew that there were things going on. There were difficulties that she experienced. So ask yourself introspectively, have you actually ever truly felt good? And if you haven't, then this seminar will help you learn how to feel good, period. So please come to that. You need to RSVP. Typically, we have standing room only. And if you enjoy standing, then you don't need to call. But if you do not enjoy standing, you need to reserve yourself a seat. And to do that, call our office. The number is area code 361-575-4683. And just tell Tanya, that's the front desk girl, just tell Tanya that you wish to RSVP for the next free health seminar. Well, that's it for this morning, folks. I'm your host, Leigh Brunellen. Thank you for tuning in to Health Alert.